What's up, everybody? I'm Avataj, and welcome to a new episode of the HLTB podcast. I am joined every week by my fellow co-host Paula, aka Pokepaw.
Hello there.
And this week we're going to do the usual talking about games we've beaten, and we have both beaten some games, or a game, really, if I'm honest. No retirements this week, but we've also been playing some new stuff and some old stuff, and I'm sure we've got plenty to say about that. Our topic this week, we're talking about what I like to call, quote-unquote, wiki games, and that's games that you basically have to look up a wiki online if you want to know how to play. But we'll get into the weeds with that a bit later. And then we're going to round it off with our guessing game, where Paula's going to quiz me. I'm 5 points behind, but I'm hoping I can jump ahead a bit more this time and, you know, close the gap a little bit.
I'm not gonna make it any easier for you.
No, I wouldn't want you to. But why don't you kick us off, Paula, with what you finished in the since last time we recorded?
Yep. So I finished my run of Civilization 5, like the solo run that I had going on, where I was USA and Japan pulled a Judas and betrayed me.
That's right.
Funny enough, this was kind of like in the Easter, like in the Easter weekend, so I guess it was topical. But anyway,
that went over my head. You're gonna have to explain.
Oh no, it was after. So the thing is that when I was playing Civilization 5 and I started that run in particular, you know how there's this. In Christianism, there's we kind of like celebrate / commemorate the Easter week, because that's where it was a Friday that Jesus got crucified, and on Sunday he pretty much
came back,
revived, whatever, resurrection. That's it.
That's the one. Yeah.
And Judas was the one who sold him out. So.
I get the reference now. Sorry, took me a while.
Yeah.
No, very good.
I'm not particularly religious, but the meme "Ni Judas se atrevió tanto," or not even Judas dared to do that, is a thing here in Chile. So yeah.
Cool. And yeah, I get it now. Japan is your Judas.
Yeah, Japan was my Judas.
Nice.
Anyway, so my run, I guess my week started with me attacking Trivan and Geneva and finally destroying Mongolia. Again, Japan didn't leave a finger. They just told me, hey, let's attack Mongolia together. And I was, all right. I'm going to do it anyway, so let's do it together. And then Japan denounced me. And it was like, fuck you, Japan. So yeah, I ended up annexing both of those cities that I captured Mongolia, because you can annex them and make them a puppet. But if you make them a puppet, you don't have as much control over what they produce. And the last one was to raise the city, and just make it disappear, and you can build your own city, which, depending on which city you are trying to capture, one may be more beneficial than the other. Because if you have if you capture a bigger city, it might be better to just annex it, because it already has a lot of citizens and a higher production. So you don't want to start from zero there. But if it's a newer city, the unhappiness you get from having that city annexed to your kingdom or your empire, however you want to call it, is not worth it. So it's better to just raise it and start from scratch with a city of your own. That's what I've learned, at the very least, or at the very least, that's how it looks to me.
Nice.
So after my shenanigans in Mongolia and before attacking Japan, I I already had like a second neighbor that was kind of like grinding my years. That was Rome, because Augustus Caesar was like, "Hey, I'm gonna declare war on you," and then they kind of like decided not to. Because I got one of their cities, and it was like, okay, let's make peace for a bit, and it was like, okay, I'm gonna raid Japan, I'm gonna raid Mongolia in the meanwhile. So I finished with Mongolia, and I was like, hey, Caesar, we have something that we haven't finished yet. So I destroyed the Great Roman Empire, and finally I attacked Japan and declared war on Oda Nobunaga. And after annexing Osaka, Kyoto, Tokyo, and raising Nara, and raising Kagoshima, and then annexing Satsuma, I defeated Oda Nobunaga, and Japan was mine.
Nice.
And the one thing that was, at this point, either I had defeated everyone else, or they've become my ally because they don't want me to raid their cities, except for one, Greece. So I conquer Sparta and Athens. Athens? I don't know how did you pronounce that. But I pretty much conquered the world by force because everyone just kept pissing me off. So I was like, okay, do you want to be my friend, my ally? No? Well, fuck off. You don't deserve to live. So it was pretty much a reign of terror, but by the end of the game. But well, I mean, everything started when Queen Elizabeth was being less than agreeable. So England, that's England's fault. And then I guess the power went over my head, and I desired the entire world because of England. But anyway,
Yeah.
do
Don't
not
mess with
give me
Paula.
power in real life, people. Okay. So yeah, that's Civilization 5. I had my fair share of fun. I still feel like the game goes a little bit too slow for my taste. Like it takes many turns of planning ahead and doing stuff before you get like a real payoff. And
Yeah.
sometimes like you go like half the game and you still don't know what you're supposed to do, in the sense of, hey, I'm not sure what kind of victory I'm aiming for.
Yep.
But yeah, I feel like I still like RCSs more than like grand strategy, turn-based kind of stuff like Civilization, mainly because I really like the moment-to-moment playthrough where you have to do stuff and adapt really quickly, and each second
Yeah.
counts. Still, I grown fond of Civilization. Like I tried to play it like some years ago and kind of retired because I didn't understand anything. But now that I understand it, I can enjoy a game or two from time to time. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think games like Civ compared to like RTSs as well, like even though you can micro and stuff in RTSs, like Civ is major micro,
Yeah.
where you micro every single turn before you finish it, kind of thing.
Pretty much. Pretty much. Especially like when you're picking which kind of production you want for that turn.
Oh, good.
Oh, I see a
Well,
very interesting game that you have finished there.
yes, I was raving about this last week, but I finished off Crime O'Clock, which is the basic hidden object game that I was playing. Ended up taking about 22 hours all up to finish. And I
Wow.
100%ed it. So, yeah, definitely lots of content there to have. And again, the thing I'll say about this game more than anything is that it actually has a good story, and there's, the progression for doing all the hidden object stuff. You're actually given a reason beyond just here's a list of stuff to find, go find it. You actually are following a story, and you're trying to, fix the timeline, so to speak, that I was talking about last time. Because for anyone who wasn't listening, the essential shtick is that you have a bunch of different maps that you're finding hidden objects on, but each map has 10 different points in time that you can move between. So as you change time, obviously the maps stay the same, but all the people and everything move around and do stuff. So when you move from one point in time to another, everyone moves to that what they were doing at that point in time compared to the previous one that you were looking at. So part of the game is, rather than finding like static objects a lot of the time, it's about following where people go and what they do and what they interact with to kind of piece together their story around that moment in time. Because it might be a case of, you know, an accident happened and someone died, but you rewind a bit and you realize that no, there was actually someone else who sabotaged something so that they would die. But then you rewind a bit more and you realize that that person who sabotaged it, someone had got to them to basically convince them to do that or blackmail them or something. And so you kind of unfold the story and the mystery by finding them on the map as you go through. And they'll do stuff like sometimes they'll change into disguises and things. So you have to kind of really look a lot harder and it's a lot harder to find them. But it's cool because it's all like, and then there's this whole like meta story, which it all kind of ties into, which I'm not going to spoil because it's actually kind of good. Much to my surprise, because games like this I always expect to be fairly, you know, the point is it's a hidden object game, so I don't expect a good story. But but this one was pretty cool. And, you know, nothing mind-blowing, but enough to keep you interested and keep you going, oh, I wonder what happens next and blah, blah, blah. So I was kind of happy to finish that and, you know, see how the story resolves itself. Again, nothing surprising. Like if you're playing through and thinking this is probably how it's going to end, then that's probably how it's going to end. But you know, it's still entertaining, and I still maintain that it's probably one of the best hidden object games that I've played, which I realize might not be a very high bar, but if you're like me and you like hidden object games, then Crime O'Clock is definitely worth checking out and definitely worth your time.
One of the things that I was thinking, like you said, it took you 22 hours to 100% it. I
Yeah.
think that's fairly long for a hidden object game, or am I
Yeah,
wrong?
I think so. Yeah, like I mean, there's a lot of small hidden object games on Steam which are only like an hour or two long, but
Yeah.
even the like, you know, bigger ones, like I'm thinking there's a lot of those like really colorful hidden object games which are like mysteries and murder mysteries and things that all look Elizabethan and things, and there's shitloads of them. Like people
Yeah.
make them all the time. I think they're all about, at most they're about like 8 or 9 hours, maybe 10 at a stretch,
Yeah.
and they've got a full story as well to go along with it, but they're usually pretty simplistic. Like you're only ever looking for like one thing at a time to get to the next part of the story. So I would still say this one is like heaps better. And it's kind of amusing as well. Like there's the whole story section where you look for everything to solve the story, but then once you've basically 100% at each map, you can go back and there's, I want to say like 10 other characters that you can find their stories, and they're like extra kind of stuff. So you don't have to do it, but it's just something else to do because why not? And I mentioned this last time as well, and it's usually like a bit of a pun on a well-known character. Like last time I mentioned, they've got some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in one of the levels, but it's literally just 4 little turtles who are cruising around the map doing stuff.
Oh my
So,
god, I love them.
so if you want to go for 100%, you've got to find them in each moment in time on that map to kind of tell their story. But then there's like heaps of other character references as well. Like there's, they never actually have the same name. It's like a pun on the name, but there's a John Wick character who's playing with his dog. There's a Pulp Fiction character. There's like a Neo from the Matrix kind of character. There's a whole bunch of stuff like that. There's even like a Mario and Luigi kind of two guys who are like these literally Italian looking plumbers who are cruising around doing stuff, but they're wearing like the overalls and the hat, and they definitely look like a reference. And yeah, there's just heaps of stuff like that. There's like a Ryu from Street Fighter, like ninja guy who's cruising around. And yeah, there's loads of different stories to uncover about those guys as well. But that's all extra stuff, which I did because I wanted to and I enjoyed it. But so yeah, even that's kind of amusing in itself. Like it's not just, oh, here's some random shit to go find. It's like, no, here's some characters with their own little stories going on in the background that has nothing to do with the main game story. But if you find out and follow them through their little moment, it's usually a little bit of a funny story that they're doing as well across those time periods. So yeah, great game. Can't fault it, really. Which, like I say, the bar for hidden object games may not be super high, but I think this is definitely one of the best, if not the best one that I've ever played. So yeah, I can't recommend it enough if you like hidden object games, because it is still a hidden object game. So if you hate hidden object games, this one ain't going to change your mind. But it's a very good one nonetheless. So yeah, that's what I've completed. And no retirements this week. Yay.
1 week without retirements. Yay.
Yeah. But yeah, what have you been playing recently, the Pokepaw?
Okay, so mainly I've been playing their 9-bar commons because so there's an tournament that already came out, and I really want to play it once it gets home. So I decided to start playing like the other 5 Otome games that I've been playing that I've not dropped, but I got distracted by another Otome, and then another Otome game out, and I got distracted, and so on and so forth. So since I'm just waiting here for Tengoku Struggle, I decided to continue my journey through my replay of Near 9-bar commons on Switch. And again, the localization is heaps better than the one of Vita, which is, I love it. This is the definitive version of the game. So
cool.
Last time I was playing this, I was on chapter 6 for Kakeru. Oh, and quick reminder, since it's been such a long time since I played this game. You start as I guess not middle school, but yeah, primary school kid called Surata, and he was at a diet building on Japan, and he kind of got transported to the, was it Taisho era? Sengoku? I think it was Taisho. Anyway, but for to some era in Japan, like the 80s something, I think. Yeah. Or like 90s something. I don't remember. I'm so bad at this. But anyway, so he got transported to the town before that their building was constructed, or even under plan of construction. And he met this weird girl, and they boarded this strange airship because she was like, "Hey, you're lost. I don't know where you come from, but I guess this big of organization called the world can help you, and we're going to meet them. So yeah, come on board." And they met a whole lot of people over there. Most, if not all of them, are espers, who are people with powers. So, for example, Koharu, which is the weird girl that Sorada found, has the power of fire, to control fire. And Nanami has the power to erase memories. Mikoto has the power to put up barriers that can repel any attack, almost any attack. So you are prompted to select one of these girls very early into the game once you clear the prologue, and you play as one of them. And each of them has 3 different routes, because each one has 3 different bachelors on each of the routes. The funny thing about this game is that just beating the one route will give you an overall picture. You get the answer of who in the world organization is.
Yeah.
And you get many of the answers to things that don't seem to make any sense at the beginning. But you don't get it. You don't get the details. You don't get to see all the powers from the other characters on your first playthrough, and you don't know their stories, or how they got here, why they got here, what is their goal, or why are they embarking on this journey, or why, or what their motivations are. So in a sense, this is more of a character-driven game,
Cool.
because you have like this overall plot, but you mostly know about the plot from the not the very beginning, but you read a couple of routes and you know what's going on. There's not like an overall mystery like in Color Malice or in Code Realize, which has like this thing like building up and you get like the whole story and the whole truth on the last route.
Yeah.
You don't, from my memory at the release, you don't get that here, but you get to see like what like the points of view from the different characters that are embarking on this journey. Why are they embarking on this journey? What demons they are fighting, like inside demons or outside demons sometimes, and stuff like that. So in case of Kakeru, he was kind of fighting both because reasons. Um, and there are like a couple of tidbits that get like thrown around as a character that seemingly has lived for way too long, and has been trying to build the world into chaos for some time. But also there's a line that says what for like to be reborn as an esper in this era, and there's like this notion of people reincarnating in a way, but that hasn't been
Right.
explored. I'm not gonna go in the details of who the world is, just that they do have like a proper role in this game, and they present the whole cast with a choice to make. And this option has been presented a total of 8 times prior to them arriving there. But it has to do with trying to preserve peace in the world, because it has a tendency to devolve into chaos and war.
Cool.
uh it is kind of difficult to talk about this without like spoiling the thing, but I kind of like don't want to spoil like the one plot twist the game has, so yeah.
Yeah. Probably a good thing.
uh so yeah, so in general, like this route did give you like another like a very broad brush stroke of what is going on, but there are still like a lot of uh questions left unanswered at the end of this route, and there are like new questions that pop into your mind, like still like we finished the route and still we don't know how Sarada got here. So and also like I like that the three protagonists of this game have like very distinct and different personalities, because that
Cool.
also allows for a wider range of interactions between characters. And also it allows the writers to construct like the different love interests, and they don't have to kind of force their hand into interacting a certain way with the MC, which is kind of cool. So
Yep.
the second route that I got into, I like Koharu is like this very sweet, very innocent girl who cannot see any bad on people, and she's kind of clueless because she's been living like a hermit for a while, mainly because people are scared of her fire powers that everyone fears, because fire destroys things. So she's kind
Yeah.
of internalized that her power is dangerous and doesn't have any use until I get to the world and explain like why the hell does she has. In the other hand, we have Nanami, which is a more quiet and trusting girl. Like she isn't here to make friends. She's here on a mission.
Cool.
And she also seems to be like from kind of a ninja clan of some kind, and can fight with kunai. The thing is that she's like the complete opposite of Koharu, because Koharu is like a ray of sunshine and Nanami just wants to be left alone and doesn't really enjoy the company of people. Like with a couple of exceptions that just kind of like happened in a way. But she has the power to erase memories. So she's one of the ones in the chip that doesn't really want to share what her power is with the rest of them.
Mm.
Because he says like, hey, do not expect that all of us can share our powers and still get along with each other.
Yeah.
So yeah. Roles, I said previously that each team has like different roles on the chip. For some uncanny reason, this group in particular, the Nanami group, is tasked with cooking in the kitchen.
Okay.
So this team has 4 people, which is Nanami, the girl, plus Heishi, who can like communicate telepathically. Akito, that has like powers over water. And what was the other guy? Oh, Ron, who I quote from from one of the from the kid character that Sorata. He looks like the guy your parents warn you not to go, not to get close with.
Is his name literally just Ron?
Is Murabushi Ron, but
It just sounded funny because you said all these like other names that were quite complex, and then Ron.
yeah, like it's because I can't remember like his surname for to save my life, but they just call him
That's
like
okay.
Ron. But yeah, Tsurada says reminds me of the kind of caricature they put on the stranger danger posters at school, which is quite accurate because I felt the same when I saw this character design.
Nice.
So yeah, this team is a total disaster. The only one who can properly cook food without killing people is Akito. And he usually just kicks the others out of the kitchen when they after they make something unedible and just fixes food by himself and throws away like all the mess. So Nanami is like overly like she doesn't care about the taste. She cares about the amount of proteins and vitamins that she puts on food.
Yeah.
Which is horrible. And Casey, for some uncanny reason, puts sugar everywhere. And when they combine their powers together, you get the most dubious food you've ever seen. And Ron just stands there, grabs his bowl of rice before the other two condiment it, and runs away. That's his whole thing. And Agito's
Nice.
like, okay, you guys get the fuck out of the kitchen. I work here. But for some reason, they are still allowed in the kitchen from time to time, and they are promptly, really quickly kicked out of the kitchen. So anyway, after the chapter 1, that is kind of like similar to the other things, that there was an attack of the ship, but now you're in the crew that examines like a lot of the damage that may have been caused in the ship. And then you get to the proper route split, where you select like the partner that is gonna be like the one guy you're gonna go for in the game. So I went for the recommended pair for the first playthrough of Nanami, which is Otomaru Heishi. And again, this is the guy who he's kind of like a puppy in a way, because he's like overly optimistic and very playful, and doesn't like, he has like the most horrible poker face. Plus, he kind of like broadcasts his emotions to the world because telepathy. So it's kind of fun. So it is very fun that again, since you have like different routes that aren't meant like for each character or for each main protagonist,
Right.
you get like the kind of companionship that you wouldn't get if everyone was head over heels for the one girl, which is very welcome. Like, I swear, Nanami, Heishi, and Itsuki, that is one of the guys from Mikato's route, are like just bros hanging around, which is like the best thing ever. I took is actually a very good friend in this route. Like he can be a jackass and a total flirt and playboy, but with Nanami, he's like a real friend that actually gives advice that is useful.
Cool.
So yeah. I think I've come to that point in the road where I already understand what's like the dynamic with Nanami and the other guys a little bit. It seems she has like some history with another character, a couple of characters from the ship, and she's actually like being pointed at as the culprit for something that happened long ago. So yeah, that's all I can say for now, because not only because of spoilers, but because that's where I am at the moment for the route. But in a way, Nanami has grown on me as a protagonist, because the first time I played Nord 9, I wasn't particularly fond of her, but that has changed like really quickly.
Cool.
So yeah. The other game that I've been playing, and this one I was playing like just before recording, is Vemba, which you played a while ago.
Yeah, loved it.
Yeah, and I'm loving it too. Like, first of all, oh my god, the art style. I love it so much. Like that line list art style, it is beautiful. Also, I find it like very interesting. Like the whole premise of the thing is that this I think it's Indian couple that came to that came into Canada, and they're like trying to make a life for themselves there. Things aren't always going like well.
Yep.
Because of course they bring a tradition with them, and they get into this country and have to learn the language and have to do their best to try to adapt to all these changes.
Yep.
So in a way, Memba, who is like the mother of this family, she has like the full. I'm sorry if I butcher this, but it's like that sari outfit that is kind of like this dress with the not scarf, like cloth.
It's a sari, yeah.
Yeah. And she dressed like in a very traditional way, and she likes to prepare like very traditional food, which is like the tradition that they bring from their country into this new world. On the other hand, like the husband is trying to adapt, because he has trouble finding work. But he's still more in the line of, okay, we need to adapt or die, pretty much. Because we're no longer home, but he still has trouble with it. And then you have the kid who was born here, was raised with this tradition, but also has been exposed to what is a new world for his parents at a very early age. So at some point, you have this dynamic where the kid just wants to be one of the others and doesn't particularly care for tradition. So you have like this kind of breach in the family, which is very interesting because, not gonna lie, a lot of families go through this when they decide to live in another country or in another culture. So yeah, I'm really
and I think,
this.
without spoiling anything for you, that relationship between the son and the parents was what I found was the most compelling part of the whole game, as far as the story anyway, because the story is interesting because it is about immigrants and their experience trying to, get used to a new society and different cultures and all that kind of thing. But the fact that it really, I guess, opened my eyes to something that I think would be a very real thing, like you say, where your kids kind of assimilate a lot quicker and learn the language quicker and everything, but you're still limited probably by language and by understanding culture and all that kind of thing. So it kind of distances you in a way from your kid who is now experiencing something differently and living a different life than you're used to. And they explore that a lot in this game. And like I said, I don't want to spoil anything, but that was like, to me, one of the coolest things about the game, because I feel like that's a very real thing that happens. So
Yeah, like imagine that the older generations, for example, just with technology, the older generations has like a very hard time adapting to it. Well, kids these days are very much born with a tablet under their under their arms, or like most of them. So they learn to use this technology in a way quicker way that their parents did, or like their grandparents did. So in a way, it becomes a bridge of understanding between these generations, because not every one of the older generations either like got to understand how to work with this technology. Like for example, I was talking about before recording, like this web page where you file your taxes here in Chile, and
yeah,
that the page itself is a nightmare to navigate. And for example, my martial arts teacher, like the people from the martial arts club, have to help him like file
yeah,
his taxes, because he himself cannot do it on the computer. Like he could do it if it was an option to do it like on the tax office, just say something. But since now you can only file them online, he's out of luck because he doesn't know how to operate it. So yeah.
well, yeah,
um
and similarly, I remember going to high school. One of my friends was this Israeli kid who his folks had moved to my city and to Australia from Israel to try and get him out of doing their mandatory army service that they have to do in
mhm.
Israel. And so his folks only spoke Hebrew and did not understand English like at all. So they relied on him, on their son, to kind of help them with everything. So anything they had to do, like navigating, even finding a house or paying bills, or just all those little things that you have to do just to live, and that every kind of society does a little bit differently. Like you say, paying taxes or whatever. Like my 16-year-old friend basically was looking after his parents in this new country kind of thing, even though there were other Israeli kind of members of the community who they socialized with and everything. But because they were so new to the country and had come very quickly because they were trying to, basically escape conscription. But yeah, it was really interesting because hanging out with my friend and his family the whole dynamic was different, because essentially they relied on him because he could speak English and he could, interact with everyone and understood the culture a lot better and kind of assimilated a lot quicker. So as much as, it didn't ruin their relationship or anything, like there wasn't necessarily many negative parts to that. That was actually quite good. It did kind of change their whole dynamic as a family than it would have if they had just remained in Israel, because, their parents would have still had their autonomy and all that kind of thing. So
True.
I think that stuff's fascinating personally. And I love that this game kind of talks about it in a way that is very, I think, very authentic and believable. So, yeah.
Yeah, so also the same martial arts, like the same martial arts teacher teaches Tai Chi on campus, and
Mm-hmm.
I help him around with classes, because I don't know who in the world thought that one single man could teach 25 young adults Tai Chi without trouble. But yeah, I help him out a lot when I have the time. And last semester we have like a couple of uh, Chinese descendants, like they were born
Yep.
here in Chile, but think it was their grandmother or their grandparents that came to Chile, and and pretty much like built business and started like a new life here. And even though they do not have like that cultural influence from China,
Mm.
like here, like you don't. Okay, so here in Chile we are like people touch you a lot in a way, because if you're greeting someone, you don't check their hand. You usually either like do like a kiss on the cheek, a high
Yep.
five or whatever. But like that kiss on the cheek before pandemic, it was like the standard greeting for everyone.
Yep.
And in China, they do not do that. Like I've been there, and
Yeah.
the most they cannot do, it's like that handshake. But if they can avoid it, they will.
Yeah.
So first of all, there was a culture shock over there for their family. But for example, they've been like here long enough in the sense of enough generations have passed, and they've been like fully exposed to Chile since pretty much being born, that they don't mind.
Yeah.
But for example, but I don't think their grandmother would approve. But in the other hand, like they keep tradition with food and meals and stuff like that, which I always welcome, and I love that because I love
Hell
to
yeah.
eat. I love to eat food from different kinds of from different parts of the world. But yeah, like they don't do like traditional like the 3 meals a day, but they do eat traditional, like at the very least like in the weekends when they see their grandmother, because their grandmother like is full traditional Chinese lady,
Yeah.
or was, I
Yeah.
don't know. But yeah.
Well, and again, that's something I liked about Vemba, where a lot of for anyone playing along, the most of the game is like a narrative kind of game, but then another part of it is you make food as part of the gameplay. And tell me what you thought, Paula, but I thought that was a really good way to kind of teach you a bit more about the culture as well, because they talk about the food while they're making it and stuff, and you have to kind of figure out how it all works.
Yeah, like I've done like the first 2 plates. The first one
Yep.
like being like very simplistic, and it was like kind of teaching you the mechanics. And what I love about the thing is that you have this old notebook from I assume who was like the Bemba's mother, I think was.
Yeah.
And the pages are not perfect. They are torn. They're smudged over. So you have most of the recipe, but you still have to make out like little parts of it, based on what Vemba remembers from watching her mother cook, which I find is like the most authentic in a way that I've seen people like cooking the recipes of their parents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which kind of reminds me like my boyfriend's mother. She has like Italian ascendance, and she has a notebook with recipes from, I think, her grandmother, because he calls her la nonna, and you call like Italian people call nonna their grandmother, I think.
Yep.
So yeah, it's the same. Like you can barely make out like the handwriting. Sometimes like the handwriting is it's great because it's much, and also not all people do measures the same way. So I love that about how Bemba has represented like this cooking part of the game, because you have to improvise a bit, but you still have the recipe. And I love how at the same time I loved, but I dread the fact that so far they used like a very specific cooking utensils from their country.
Yep.
I love that because I love seeing like how people from other cultures make food.
Yeah.
But I'm sad because I cannot make that myself, because where the fuck do I get the rocket thing they use for the second plate? But
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's where I feel lucky living in Australia, because we're super multicultural. So there's like entire Indian supermarkets here and stuff where you can pick up all that gear. And yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look here, because I know we have like like mini courts of culture, like especially like in the Japanese, Chinese, not Korean now that I think about it, but you have like a course of other cultures living around here. But I haven't seen like the like many Indian stores for food and stuff like that. So that's a shame.
Yeah.
I might need to pay you to ship this stuff.
Yeah, maybe I can find you something as a present. But
Yeah. But anyway, I'm really thinking Bemba. I like it. It's speaking to me to an almost spiritual level, because the way the like Bemba is trying to connect with her kid is preparing food in a way, and that's how I connected with my parents when I was young. So happy times there.
Yeah, well, I think yeah, you're going to enjoy the rest of it because it just, in my view, it gets better. So
Nice. I'm so looking forward to it. So anyway, I've gushed about this long enough. So
yeah,
please,
great game though. Very, very good game. Whenever I think about it, I'm like, yeah, that was a great game. I have continued playing Overload, which I've spoken at length about. I'm at that point in the game where I'm still enjoying myself, but I'm kind of thinking, okay, they've stuck with a very old school kind of style of game design, because each level basically is an iteration on the last in difficulty, and which is, fair enough. That's how a lot of games work, but you can kind of see it in this game. So you're doing essentially the same thing, but instead of in a previous level where you might find the reactor in a mine and you have to explode it and then get to the exit before the whole place collapses. Now, instead of just doing that, there's a shield in front of the reactor. So you've got to go find the shield generators and destroy them, and then come and destroy the reactor and then escape the mine. But then there's other stuff like, okay, on the next level, now there's the shield generators and the shields, but those shield generators have shields. So you've got to find the generators for those generators. And it just kind of like adds an extra layer each time you go through.
It
and like
becomes
adds
recursive.
a new kind of, but it adds like a new enemy as well, like every level. So there's, some other thing to deal with. And it might sound bad when I put it that way, but it's still very enjoyable. And it's just kind of like, as I was playing it, I was like, yeah, this is kind of obviously old school game design. Like, which again is kind of fair enough, because this game was kickstarted as a new version of an old school game. So I kind of don't blame them for that anyway, because I don't think they're trying to be super innovative. I think they're just trying to make a new version of Descent, which is essentially what they've done anyway. So, I'm happy either way. It's just interesting as you play it going, oh, yeah, things have changed since they used to do things this way. And there are different ways of doing this. And, it's still a lot of fun. And like the last level I played, I was like so close to dying. Like my health was on the very last blip, like little pixel. But I managed to escape and get away in the last moment. So that was a nice tense kind of white knuckle bit of gaming. But yeah, other than that, it's still pretty much the same game, and I'm enjoying it, and I continue to enjoy it. So it's just interesting when those kind of different design sensibilities kind of stand out. Speaking of, I've continued playing the FMV dating sim Lovers All Around as well, and this game is like. It's just the kind of game where I almost want to do like a real deep dive into it, because it's not crap, but it's not great. It's just kind of odd. And the whole thing is FMV, so it's all, real life actors and scenes and all that kind of stuff. But the way they tell the story, because it's a straight up dating sim essentially. You're some dude who's met basically 3 different women who you're kind of, choosing who do you like and who do you want to support and whatever, all that kind of typical dating sim stuff. But and they're all very different. Like one of them's the rich kind of prim and proper girl. Another one's the kind of like party girl who goes and gets drunk every night. And the other one's like the homely kind of mother type girl. And it's very, very generic in that sense. But the way they tell the story is kind of weird, because it jumps from scene to scene depending on your choices, as you would expect. but the jumps are actually quite a big jump. Like you might have a scene where you're talking to someone and then you make a choice and it will jump ahead to like the next day for 5 minutes. And then you'll make a choice there and it'll jump ahead to that night. And it just like does these random like massive jumps where sometimes it feels really disconnected because it takes you a second to kind of figure out the link between the previous scene and this one.
It's a very odd choice.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. It just feels odd. Like it's not terrible necessarily. Like it's not great by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not like offensively awful. It's just odd kind of feeling. And it gives you this weird kind of vibe about the flow of the whole game, and the dialogue and everything feels very stilted in places. But it is kind of a bit, it's a bit janky because it's, the acting's not that great, the writing's kind of whatever, and it's obviously a budget kind of deal. And the way things are filmed, you know how you can kind of tell when something's filmed and it's probably been filmed on like an iPhone or something?
Yeah.
As in it's good enough quality, but the lighting's a bit weird because it's not like studio lighting. It's that kind of stuff too, where it's like, I feel like I could have filmed this myself. But having said that, it is kind of fun and I am enjoying it because of all that jank and everything. And there is a bit of the whole lost in translation cultural difference because it's I think it's a Chinese game, I want to say, but I could be wrong. It might be another Asian game. I'm sorry for just dumping everyone together. But I do feel, I seem to remember it's Chinese, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. It's just in another language. But there are some cultural things. Like there's this one bit where you have to essentially go and fight one of the girl's ex-partners because he's bullying her and like being a dick. But he's like an MMA fighter. And so you go to this gym where he's all there with his boxing gloves and everything. And there's like 20 dudes around him who are all like these tough guys with their boxing gear on and everything. And they're just like looking at you, giving you some like glaring at you and stuff. And you're like the nerd who's like, I'm going to teach you a lesson. So then you go into this like mini game where you're like fighting the dude and there's all the, quote unquote cool people cheering him on and stuff. But when like movies try to make people look cool and they don't really look cool.
Yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
I do.
So it's kind of funny, but a bit cringy at the same time. But yeah, one thing the game does really well, which I will give it a lot of credit for, is obviously there's lots of choices and stuff along the way. So at any point you can exit out to a menu, which is the branching choice kind of diagram. And it shows you where each scene is and like where the choice was and where all that kind of thing. And you can jump back to any scene at any point, just as however you please, and make the other choice and see that kind of stuff. So it's very easy to like jump around and see different paths and different trees and all that kind of stuff without, taking notes and getting confused or having to restart the whole game or, that kind of thing. So that's cool. And that I really appreciate because, it's fun just to see alternatives and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, this is kind of a bit of a so bad it's good situation at the moment. And I'm having a good time. That's what I mean. I'm entertained. So as far as I'm concerned, that's a good thing. But I don't think I'm entertained for the reasons they thought I'd be entertained. So yeah, anyway, love is all around.
We should do like a Lost in Translation episode of some kind. That would be fun.
I'm sure we could do something, yeah. But yeah, that I actually nominated Love is All Around for April Fools. I didn't think it would win. It's that kind of game where it's like, it's a bit silly, but it's enjoyable nonetheless. Another game I started because I saw it was on Game Pass was Lil Gator Game, which I knew nothing about, but I remember from playing Fantasy Critic last year, it actually scored really well critically. And it's this cute little game where you're basically a little kid who's a alligator.
It is adorable.
Yeah. Have you played it?
I haven't played it, but I've been wanting to,
okay.
And I just realized it was added on Game Pass.
Yeah.
So I'm considering it.
Just recently, yeah. And I would recommend that you do play it because I'm sure you'll like it. Because imagine, what was that game? Oh, what was the game where you're a bird and you're like climbing up a mountain?
Oh, A Short Hike.
That's the one.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of A Short Hike.
Definitely.
It's a lot bigger and there's a lot more to it because it's, a bigger game. But essentially the whole premise of the game is that you're this little kid who's an alligator and you usually you'd go play with your older sister And you play these make-believe games where you like make cardboard cutouts of monsters and stuff, and you attack them and you pretend you're at night or whatever. But your sister's grown up and basically gone off to college or high school or something like that. And so she's no longer interested in playing with you. So you're hanging out with your sister and all your friends on this island, because you are, and she's just too busy working on her homework and stuff and, doesn't want to play with you. So you come up with this idea that, hey, if I play and have a really good time and have fun with all my friends, she'll see how much she's missing out on and she's going to come play with me. So the whole idea... It's really sweet, actually, because the whole point then is like, so you go off and like do stuff to show that you're having a really good time. Like you find a bit of cardboard that you turn into a shield, and you find like a cardboard sword, and you kill all these cardboard enemies and stuff. And basically the gameplay feels a lot like a short hike where you can kind of go anywhere, and it's very open world in that sense, but you have like a stamina bar. So you can climb up things, but you've got a limit. But you can buy bangles from one of your friends, like, bracelets. And that acts like the feathers in Short Hike, where you can then get more stamina and climb higher and all that kind of thing. And the idea is to go around the island, essentially finding your friends and other kids and stuff who then give you quests. And you go and, complete those. And then after each kind of chapter, you go back to your sister and you're like, see, check out all this cool shit I did. And she's like, I'm not interested. I'm too old and too cool. So you go, all right, I'm going to go do some other stuff. And you go and play some more. And then you go back to her and go, see, I'm having a great time. You should join me. And she's like, I don't know. I don't want to. And I haven't obviously finished the game. And I hope that by the end, she comes and plays with you. But I don't know if that's actually going to happen, but that would be nice. But it is just like a really, without being kind of off-puttingly cute, it's a very cute game. And, and it's very adorable and lots of fun to play.
It really looks just adorable. I'm just seeing a screenshot of the little alligator like going in this like power line, like trying to walk and keep its equilibrium with a bucket for a hat, and it looks so derpy. I love him.
Yeah, so there's like as you go around destroying things, like there's cardboard monsters everywhere, and the things that you hit and destroy. And as you do, you get bits of scrap paper is like the currency. So as you destroy cardboard monsters and stuff, you pick up piles of scrap paper, and then you turn that scrap paper into things like hats or different things. Like you're basically playing make believe and different capes and things and all that kind of stuff. So at the moment, like my dude's got a fishbowl on his head and like a big axe that he's made, and he's got like an old dinner plate which is his shield. And it's just lots of fun. It's really creative, and it's really it's that kind of game again which it's very open-ended. Like it doesn't direct you 100% of the time. Like there isn't even like a quest list that I've been able to find. Maybe I'm being stupid, but I've looked every now and then because I'm like, oh man, I can't remember what I was meant to do for that other dude. But you can go back and talk to people and they'll tell you again, what they want you to do. But otherwise, you've just basically got to explore everywhere on the island, and you'll find things all the time to do, and things to find, or even little things like which wasn't a big quest, but I was exploring, and then there was this like whale that was stuck in like a very small kind of lake.
Mm-hmm.
And I talked to the whale, and the whale's like, oh, I've got something stuck in my blowhole. So you've got to like use your stamina to like climb up on top of the whale, and he's got like a bowling ball stuck in his blowhole. So you pull it out, and then he's like, oh, cool, I can use my blowhole again. So he launches you up into the air, which then you can use that to kind of get higher and, use him like a big trampoline. And he becomes your friend as well. And
beautiful.
So yeah, there's heaps of cool stuff like that. And yeah, it's just it puts a smile on your face to play it kind of game. I can see why it was so critically well received, because as much as it is very much a very kind of kiddie, kind of cute, adorable little game, it's a lot of fun, and it's really quite endearing. So yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing that off sometime. But I think it was only recently put on Game Pass, so definitely worth checking out. Another one that has been put on Game Pass, and I've been waiting for it to come on Game Pass because it only got released like yesterday, is Botany Manor. And for those astute listeners, you might have heard me speak about this when we talked about Steam Next Fest demos, because I played the demo of this and it was probably like my favorite game in Steam Next Fest that I played. And it's out now. And it's on Game Pass as well, so I've been playing it. Didn't even have to pay extra for it. So that's
Beautiful.
good. And I've seen some of the reviews as well. It's been pretty well received critically. I've seen some people give it a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
But others have pretty much hovered around the 8 or 9 out of 10. And the premise of the whole game is that story-wise, it's a bit loose, but the point is there's this mansion and the gardens and everything around the mansion, and that's the location of the game.
Okay.
And you've rocked up there as your friend, I think, who is a woman named Annabelle. You don't actually see anyone else, but you kind of pick up the story through letters and things that you find.
Mm-hmm.
And essentially the story side of it is all about these women in this family who have been biologists and botanists in a society where perhaps women were not welcome in those sort of scientific realms. Mm-hmm. So you get a lot of correspondence and books and things that you can read and get the like history of the family. And it's a cool kind of story because it's basically about these women who are like, nah, fuck it, I want to be a scientist. Screw you, old bastards. Like, we're going to do it anyway and we're going to do cool shit.
Beautiful.
And, so that's the kind of background to this house that you're exploring. But it's essentially a puzzle game, though, at the end of the day, because as you explore the house, you find different exotic and very fictional plants that you can grow and get them to bloom. And that's kind of like the puzzles that take you through each and every part of the house. So it's all, and there's, a lot of it's locked up and everything in the very first instance, at the very beginning of the game, you're locked inside a conservatory and you have to kind of solve a puzzle in order to get out. But then when you get into the house and stuff, like whole sections of the house will be locked up, but you have to solve puzzles to then find keys to then unlock doors to then get to different parts of the house and solve different puzzles and, all that kind of stuff. That's how it kind of guides you through, is by just locking off areas. Mm-hmm. But the puzzles you have to solve is to plant and bloom certain flowers, and they're all highly fictional and require different methods in order to get them to bloom, such as the very first flower you bloom when you're stuck in the conservatory. So you're stuck in this kind of greenhouse conservatory kind of building, and it's all very foggy and polluted and everything. So you can't really see much, but you have all the ingredients in the gear to plant a particular type of flower. But this particular type of flower requires a certain temperature for it to bloom. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like the gimmick for this flower. Each flower kind of has its own little gimmick. So you plant this flower, but then around the room there are clues like posters and charts and things where you find out more information about this flower, and you find out, okay, so this flower typically grows in this location. So then you find another one which has like temperature charts for different locations, and you find the location where it grows, and you see, okay, so it grows in like a 60-degree environment. So you go, okay, it probably needs 60 degrees to bloom. And in the room, there's like almost like a boiler, but like a heater kind of machine that you can then set the temperature, and it's got like a little outlet where it kind of blasts heat out. So you pop the flower in front of that and you turn the heat on, and then it makes the flower bloom. And that's the puzzle kind of thing. So that's the very first one. That's a very simple puzzle, but it's kind of the same method for everything else. And that then, the flower blooms, and the reason you're blooming this flower in the first place is because then it clears all the pollution in the conservatory, because that's what that flower does. And then you can kind of find the key and you can get out and continue the game. And so then you find other flowers for other things, and essentially each area has a number of different flowers that you're trying to, get to grow and bloom. So, and they could be anything. Like there's some really complex puzzles about one of them. You have to kind of play the right kind of song with some bells in order to get it to bloom. But you have to get like a series of like 6 different things that kind of give you clues as to what song you need to play and then how to play it. So they obfuscate things a lot with different levels and different layers of clues. So like you might get one clue which tells you one thing, But then from that thing, you need to use that on another clue to then decide another thing, and then that will show you where to go for another thing, and so on and so forth. And it's really good because it's the kind of puzzles where you have to think and perhaps even write stuff down, so it feels more complex than maybe it is, but it's simple enough that you can figure it out. It's pretty straightforward when you explore enough and make sure you've got all the clues in the area and all that kind of thing. And I think I'm down to the last chapter. It's quite short. I think it's only about 3.5 hours all up or something like that. So I'm kind of glad it's on Game Pass because that's the kind of game that I think really suits Game Pass. I don't know how much it would cost otherwise, but, that's something to consider.
Mhm.
But it's really good and I'm really enjoying it. And I look forward to basically playing the last chapter, which is where I'm up to.
Wow.
And I assume that'll be the biggest chapter. There's 5 chapters all up, I think, because at the very beginning you get a book which kind of fills out as you go. And so, from the very beginning, there's 5 chapters because on the index, it's got maps. So you know where you are and like where you can go, and then 5 different chapters.
Mhm.
And as you go through each one, you fill out the details for each flower that you managed to grow and the clues that got you there and all that kind of stuff. And I'm up to the last one. So unless they spring another one on me without expecting, I think I'm up to the last chapter.
Yeah, like there's a hidden letter inside of the book or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, there could be something like that. Who knows? But I did look on How Long to Beat, and I think it is about 3 or so hours. So I'm probably on track for that as well. So, I'm not expecting any huge surprises. But having said that, it's very good. It's very well put together. It's the kind of puzzle game where when you solve something, it is complex enough that you get that real sense of satisfaction. Like, hell yeah. Because
Like that
part of
aha
you's like,
moment.
yeah, and because part of you's like, maybe this will work. I think it should work. And then you do it and you're like, oh, it does work. Yay. So, that's good. Yeah. But Botany Manor, as basically everything I was expecting it to be from the demo. And yeah, very much enjoying it. And I'll probably talk about the ending next week and spoil it for everybody. No, just kidding.
Ta-da.
But let's move on to our topic of the week, which I'm calling Wiki Games. I don't know. Does it, Paula, tell me, do you call games Wiki Games?
I think it's more like guide games.
Right. Because, yeah, I've always just referred to these sorts of games as Wiki Games, but I know that might be just something I made up. But,
I mean, I like the game. It rolls off the tongue a lot better. So.
But yeah, so what I was thinking about when I think about Wiki Games are the kind of games that it's very much a modern thing because obviously the internet and everything and wikis being a thing. But there are some games out there where if you were just not necessarily in gaming circles or didn't hear things about games, like not listening to podcasts or anything like that, and you just picked up a game, in my opinion, being an old man, because I know how it used to be, you should be able to pick up a game and play it without any other input and still know what to do and still be able to play it and finish it and have a good time. But with the advent of the internet, and I also think early access as well, because that is its own little thing, which we'll talk about in a bit. But there are some games out there where it can be nearly impossible to experience most of the game, if not any of the game, unless you know something and you look it up online and, there's nothing in the game kind of telling you how to finish the game. It's purely you have to go and do some research. And that kind of annoys me in a way.
Yeah, and this extends to very old games that maybe they were like more obtuse, but they at the time they were released, they were forgiven because they included a guide with them.
Yes.
The game manual, the fabled game manual that is not included anymore, and I hate it here. And why can't we have like the game manual again? But the thing is that for games like The Legend of Zelda, the first one, you have a manual that has like an intro to the story of the game. You have like little clues to who the NPCs are or like what things you can do inside the game and things like that. So without the manual, there's and without knowing anything beforehand, you would have a very bad time. So, for example, there's an enemy called a Dodongo that it looks kind of like a Triceratops in the game. That you would know it is a Dodongo because in the game manual it tells you like, hey, this dinosaur-looking thing is a Dodongo. And then you have the old man at one of the many, many caves in the map that says, hey, Dodongos dislike smoke. And with that, plus the manual telling you that this creature have like a very thick skin, then you might want to, I don't know, put a bomb like in front of them and try to kill them that way because they eat the bomb. But without that input of, first of all, what the hell is a Dodongo, the clue that the game itself gives you is entirely worthless. And you can literally go to the final boss without the item required to beat the final boss.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like, we were thinking of games that kind of, fit in this category, and one that kind of does, but also doesn't, that I think of a lot as well, and Paula came up with, was Minecraft, because that's the kind of game where there is no in-game tutorial really. I know there's different versions now, like the Microsoft version and stuff, that do have some sort of tutorialization, like they tell you how to make a couple of things. But
yeah, like on some version, I think there's an NPC telling you how to build a house, but I don't know which one.
I think there's some basic kind of onboarding that happens, but especially when it was just, Notch making Minecraft, there was nothing telling you about any of the recipes or anything like that. You just have to kind of figure it out. And I think Minecraft's a good one to talk about because I think most people have an idea of kind of what Minecraft is about, even if you've never played it. But imagine jumping into that game without the internet and without being able to look up anything or having seen anything about Minecraft, and you're just in the game. You'd probably figure out pretty quickly that you can break blocks and there's different types of things, and, zombies come out at night and all that kind of stuff. But the actual recipes and how to craft things, I think, because there's no like in-game book or resource that kind of you can fill out to say, oh, I found a recipe and here it is, or anything that kind of hints at it, like, did you know you can build a shovel, or anything like that. You kind of have to look it up online if you want to figure out, especially some of the later game more complex stuff. Like, let's not even get started with making portals and redstone and all that kind of stuff, like
especially redstone.
Yeah. And that's not always a bad thing, because there is something to be said for discovering things yourself and figuring it out for yourself, and not having your hand held and trying things out and all that kind of stuff. But then, I don't know, for me, I do find it kind of frustrating when I feel like there's no way I'd be able to figure that out unless I looked it up online and had someone else tell me, kind of thing.
Yeah. In particular, like the portal to the end, I don't know how people realize like how the fuck do you build the thing. But I feel like that in particular is a very big thing that if you don't know how to make, you cannot finish the quote unquote story of the game.
Exactly.
Or like the main objective of the game, that is defeating the Ender Dragon. Because like, okay, you don't need redstone at all to finish the game. There's a lot of materials that you don't really encounter maybe on your first playthrough if you're like keen on exploring every nook and cranny of the world. Besides, Minecraft is the maps are like generated when you create the game, and they're randomly generated. So maybe you'll get that mushroom biome very close to home, or it might be like in one of the four corners of the map. I don't know. So you might never encounter like some materials and biomes, but they aren't necessary like to beat the game.
Mm.
On the other hand, knowing how to make the portal to the end, it's necessary to beat the game.
Yeah, and I think it's contrasted well with, say, I think talking about spoilers for Minecraft is fine in my book because everyone knows Minecraft. But the very end fight where you're fighting the Ender Dragon, I think, is a good example of not telling you something but it being okay because you can figure it out, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like when you're in the end and you're fighting the dragon, if you just shoot the dragon, he's not going to die and nothing happens to him. But there's all these like towers with braziers, I guess, like fires that are around the place, and they're kind of shielding him. So you soon figure out you've got to shoot them with arrows to destroy them, and then shoot the boss. And that's typical boss stuff, like, you know.
I think that was the old way to beat the Ender Dragon, because the way at the release that I know of beating the Ender Dragon is like making the Ender Dragon destroy the crystals itself.
Ah, okay.
Like,
I've never seen it done that way. Yeah. Maybe it's changed.
I don't know if it changed or if the times for it changed, so it is a better speedrunning strategy, but I don't know.
Well, that could be it too. Like, yeah.
Yeah, but I know that you can make the dragon destroy the crystals and pretty much and the life itself.
But yeah, those kind of boss fight strategies and stuff, which, you know, you've got to figure out as you go. That's fine. Like, I'm not saying games shouldn't have puzzles in them or things that you don't know. Like, of course they need that sort of stuff. But when it's stuff that's just so kind of esoteric that you'd never think about, that's when I kind of go, this is a bit shit. Like, it's kind of like bad game design, really, in my view, because, you know, good game design will guide you without you knowing that you're being guided, you know?
Definitely. Like, well, another game where it's very difficult to know what the hell to do with your time is Terraria.
Yes.
Because, like, I literally spent like a lot of time like just filling a little base with like the basic materials. But prior to playing with my boyfriend, or even like just watching a full hard mode playthrough of Terraria, I didn't know about the Wall of Flesh. I barely knew there were like more bosses than the Eye.
Yeah.
And then I realized like the Eye, the Brain of Cthulhu, and the Wall of Flesh were just like the very easy bosses.
Yeah.
And that once you beat the Wall of Flesh, you unlock hard mode, and then you start getting new materials and new NPCs, and you can do a lot more with in Terraria that you could have ever wished for in the base adventure. But you don't know how, like, I don't know, like, how to discover to do such things. Like, besides getting like that drop of the Eye that says like something that like it summons the Eye of Cthulhu, use at night or stuff like that. It doesn't even tell you have to use it at night. So if you use it in the day, you don't know. Like, oh, it doesn't work. I guess it's busted. You save it. Then there's like the Brain of was it the Brain of Cthulhu, where you have to break the 3 hearts or something like that? But yeah, like I guess that one you can walk into by accident by finding this weird object that you break and realize they give you like very cool stuff. So of course you're gonna break a couple more and summon the Brain of Cthulhu. But on the other hand, you have the Wall of Flesh, that if you haven't, like, if you didn't spawn the first of all, you have to get to hell, like to literal hell. Then you have to survive the lava. Then you have to somehow beat a demon holding a voodoo doll over a pit of lava, and only then you realize like that thing that was hanging from its leg, it shouldn't fall on the lava if you're unprepared. But yeah, like I feel like the more you play, the more obtuse some of the bosses become. Like some of them are like very easy to find, like if you find a hive, you break the thing and you summon the queen bee. But you don't. How do I summon like the very different kind of like moon states in a way? Because you can. So yeah, you need a wiki to know how to craft a lot of the stuff. You need a wiki to know like what kind of things you can make or what kind of weapons are even in the game.
Mm.
And you need a wiki to know like what are the bosses of the game.
Well,
So yeah.
I think things like that Wall of Flesh is like a good example of that's okay by me. Like, as in, you can stumble upon that fairly easily. Well, no, okay, not. I won't say easily, but
But
I
you
can
can
see you.
stumble upon it.
Yeah, you can. If you explore and you kill things and you explore the game and try to find stuff, you'll probably find that boss because at some point you'll kill something that'll drop it in the lava and they'll appear and you'll probably die, but you'll go, okay, that exists and I now know I can, go after that as a goal.
Yeah.
But like you say, there's other stuff where it's like you have to do like 15 things in a row that you would potentially never even think about doing to make something else happen at a certain time, and then you can advance in that way. And yeah, something that makes me think of that a lot is well, in a kind of different way, a game that I find super, super complex, but also very well designed in a way that it kind of helps you is Factorio, because I think people have seen Factorio, or they at least know, roughly kind of what it is. But it's this big factory building game where you're building huge production lines of things, and there's lots of upgrades and there's lots of, machinery and networks and all this kind of really complex stuff that you have to build. But the progression and the way that it does actually teach you how to do things makes you understand it very, very easily. And by the time I'd it's a long game. Like, you'll spend a lot of hours in it to learn everything, of course. But after I'd spent 100 hours with the game, I felt like I was really on top of everything, and I knew exactly what was happening. And I was in the end game, and I know how to do everything. I might not have accomplished everything, but I knew exactly how to progress and how to better optimize what I'm doing and all that kind of stuff. And I think that game is a perfect example of a game that is very, very, very complex when you get down to it. But I never felt in that game that I didn't know what to do, or I didn't know something to try. Even if I was like, I don't know what to do, I think, well, I could try that, or I could make that better, or I could explore here to find something else, or, there's always something else to do, which I think is the point. Like, you're never sitting there stuck going, well, I've tried everything and I don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
Which then you might Google something and go, okay, I need to do that weird thing to progress. Like, I retired either last week or the week before, that idle game called the Norp Epilogue, which kind of frustrated me because I hit a wall where I didn't know how to progress and I wasn't progressing and I was basically stuck. And so I did Google it to go, well, what's going on? Is it just me being a dumbass, or is it the game, or what is the problem here? And it's probably a bit of both, I'll admit. Like, I'm probably a bit of a dumbass, sure. But I think that, a good game will let the dumbasses have fun as well. And I just made Paula spill her drink. But yeah, so that game kind of pissed me off and I ended up retiring it because I got to a point where I didn't feel like I could progress or get anywhere, and there was nothing telling me how I could remedy that. And there was nothing that I could see that I'm like, okay, so I fucked up. Some games you get to a point like Civ or something, you might get to a point where you're like, yeah, I fucked up and everything's going bad, but I reckon if I did this differently, the outcome would be different. Whereas in North Epilogue, I was kind of like, I don't know how I could do anything different to change this, and I don't know how to progress, and I'm not progressing. And even after Googling it and finding the answer, I still couldn't progress because I'd put myself into a hole, essentially, because I'd fucked it up. And, I'm always willing to say that I am a dumbass, but this was the kind of situation where I hadn't done anything dumb. Like, it's not like I'd purposely torpedoed myself or done something really stupid that I should have known better. So no, I just played the game as normally as possible. I just didn't know what the best build was and what the best, strategy was. I just did a normal dumb strategy, and that obviously didn't work. But not in a way that kind of like, okay, yeah, you failed, game over, try again. More, well, why didn't you know that you shouldn't have done that? And it's like, but there's no way I would know.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing annoys me because I'm like, that's just, and I don't like to rag on games too much, but to me, that's just like a flaw in game design. Like, yes, you don't want everything to hold your hand 100% of the time, and you do want things to be challenging and difficult, and maybe you do have to figure it out. Maybe you do have to fail and start again. That's all cool. But when it's something that's like, I have no idea how I could have avoided this or done anything different, but I'm still failing and I'm not enjoying myself, to me, that's a flaw in the game.
Yeah.
And kind of like with even something great, like I would say Terraria is a brilliant game. And I think its success kind of stands behind that as well. But I've played Terraria as a single player without really knowing much. And I didn't get to any bosses because I didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah.
And this was a while ago. This is like years ago when I tried Terraria. And I now know more about it that I'd probably know, okay, I've got to go look stuff up if I want to play that game. But I don't really want to play that game anymore. So in my own experience with Terraria, it was not actually very good because it felt like, okay, so I build a house, I can go explore, I can do stuff, but nothing is happening and I don't feel like I'm getting anywhere and I'm bored. So I stopped playing because I didn't know what those goals were. I didn't even know that those things existed, let alone how to get to them. And yeah, I think that's kind of not a good thing.
Yeah, like Terraria really depends on the player moving their ass and try to explore and try things out. And sometimes you just want to explore a bit and find like a clue of some kind for you to keep going, which the game doesn't provide at all.
Yeah, just some kind of indication that, oh, that thing you did, that moved the ticker along, like
Yeah,
that advanced everything one little bit. I'm like, okay, cool.
definitely. Another game that, well, it kind of falls in the category of, well, no one has the guide for this because everyone threw it away. So good luck knowing what to do, sucker. It's Final Fantasy for the NES, like the original Final Fantasy game for the
Yeah.
NES. And I was talking about this without telling it before recording, but I went directly with the PSP version because I was able like to get the actual PSP version of the game and play it. And I still had like a good time with the game. Like it has age and you have to grind more than you probably should. But overall, I didn't need a guide for it. My boyfriend, on the other hand, started playing the NES version because he wanted the original experience. So,
Yep.
of course, he emulated it, so he didn't have the manual, and he pretty much talked to every NPC in the starting town, and then tried to go pretty much every direction in the map. Got utterly destroyed by many enemies, even like the basic. I don't know. I don't remember what the basic enemy in Final Fantasy is. If it's a slime, if it's a rat, I don't remember. I'm sorry. Fake fun. But even like the basic enemies were kicking his ass, and it's not like he didn't select like good characters to fight with because you got like the healer, the magician, or like two very strong characters that could quickly make a pile of ash out of the enemies. But since he couldn't really advance like easily ish in any direction, he didn't know where the fuck to go because all the enemies were hard to beat.
Yeah.
Also, the lack of direction, like no one was telling him to go a particular way. If you have the manual, or if you played any other version of the game, you would know you have to go north to the castle and defeat some guy. I forgot their name. And then you really open up the game. Like that's almost like the prologue version. The PSP version is a lot more balanced. Like the enemies don't fucking one shot you just because, and they're killable in a way. So you have a way easier time there. You have to grind way less. But on the other hand, like on one hand you get like more direction, but I feel you get too much direction Because
Yeah.
everyone in the original NES game were like, oh yeah, you have to go somewhere, I guess. Shake my head, I don't know, like they look at you funny as like, oh yeah, there's problems somewhere, go find it. uh, in the PSP version of the game, everyone is like, "Oh yeah, so there's trouble up north. So there's this guy on the castle up north. I don't remember if they like stole something, kidnapped someone, or both. But everyone is telling you to go north." To the point that my boyfriend and I made like this meme where it's like, "La dicho que está al norte," which is like, "Have they told you it is up north?"
That reminds me of playing D&D, because there was I DM a game with some friends, and there was one part where they just weren't getting anywhere. So everyone they met is like, "You really should go to this town. I hear there's lots of stuff going on in this town, and maybe if you go to that town." and boy, I'd really like to go to that town, but I can't. So after a while, they're like, "Okay, we get the message."
Yeah, I love how you have like multiple NPCs telling them like to get their shit together and they're like to go to this town, because
Yeah.
the DM that we had at some point tried to do it like a little bit more sneakily, in the sense that we had in the party like everyone was like chaotic neutral except for this half angel character who was a paladin and was like lawful good.
Yep.
And the thing is that my RDM was like, hey, since you have this cleric with you or like paladin, whatever, that belongs to a very specific church, I'm gonna send you to guys from the church, and this way they're like going somewhere, and if you touch them, you'll get information. Or that was his intention. Like we just saw the two guys like coming here, so I was like, oh, this is from the church. Uh, and things only went south from here because our characters are chaotic. So of course the tiefling, that not the tiefling, the halfling rogue, so like
Fucking
the
halfling.
duels, or like the crosses they had, and he was like, hey, how much is that worth? Oh, then I'm gonna disappear in the shadows and try to steal from them. And on the other hand, we have a tiefling that was like, hey, I'll distract them because I'm the bard. And tiefling, instead of just playing the instrument, tried to cast a spell on them, which went badly because they detected the magic, realized that the halfling was trying to steal from them, and also one of them attacked the tiefling with a fire spell and revealed like a satanic mark on their back. So they wanted us dead. So
Nice.
the very sneaky way for the DM to give us information ended up being a boss battle, and we ended up pretty much betraying a character on the of the party, knocking him pretty much dead or unconscious, and stealing everything from him. Because no, after because he sided with his people, of course.
As you
So
do.
yeah.
But yeah, I think there's lots of things in games in general that, you know, do kind of push you in the right direction, even if it doesn't feel like they're holding your hand. Like,
Yeah.
I think I spoke a while ago when I was talking about playing games with my sister and like helping her out as a new gamer, and just letting her know that, oh, if you're in a kind of dark place but there's a light
Go
or a
to the
lit up
light.
area, yeah, go to the light. That's probably where you need to go. And it sounds silly, but that's actually true. Like, and I've heard
Yeah.
game devs talk about it as well, where they're like, you know, yeah, I've lit this area because I want the people to go here. And of course you can't force them, but there are all these things that kind of trigger your brain to go, oh, okay, I get a feel for where to go next, or where to explore, or what to look at, you know, if I want to progress.
Yeah, in that sense, Dark Souls does it, like, especially like the original Dark Souls, does it like in a very smart way. Because
Mm.
of course your road gets blocked by the stronger enemies, but it's like, oh, you have like this path with, I don't know, two enemies at once, or this path with one enemy. So
Yeah.
you go through to the one with the one enemy because fuck it, I'm not gonna try to kill those two strong looking guys.
Yeah. Well, and I think yeah, Dark Souls is a great example of a game that kind of gives you enough game that you can play it and enjoy it and never have to look anything up because you can just kind of figure it out. But then there are things in there which you probably do have to look up if you want to experience everything. And I know in Dark Souls there's an ending which is like I can't remember what it's called, but it's basically you snuff out the flame instead of lighting it, but you also become like, or maybe it's Dark Souls 3 it is. I think, no, it's Dark Souls 3, where you become the Lord of Cinder and you basically take over. But it's like kind of really hard to get because there's another part, and minor spoilers here, but seriously, if you can figure it out on my loose spoilers how to do this, then good luck to you. But yeah, as you go through the game, like you say, Dark Souls is famous for, you can go anywhere, but if you go down that passage, you're probably going to meet some high-level enemy that you can't beat, so maybe go the other way until you're high enough level. Or if you're really talented, sure, go through the high-level bit. That's cool as well. But there was one ending where, I can't remember what it's called, but it's got a name, but it's like the most obscure ending, but it's kind of fun to do because you get cool lore and all this kind of stuff along the way. And you basically have to meet a couple of NPCs at specific times in specific areas as you work your way through the game, to the point that even if you miss one of them on like your first run through an area, you ruin the ending, because if you happen to miss finding that NPC, they actually go mad and start killing people, and something bad happens and you can't finish that storyline. But there's nothing telling you this, of course. There's nothing to tell you that you have to go through that little cave and around that corner to run into so-and-so, so that you can actually talk to them before something else happens. But
I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a couple who you meet who are like knights who are also on the same quest as you, but the idea is you want to end up marrying one of them and sacrificing them as well, and then you kind of, open a path to essentially take over the whole game. So you can choose which one you want to do, but whichever one you don't choose kind of ends up hollowing out and going insane, and so you eventually need to kill them without telling the other person. And that's what I mean. Spoilers, but seriously, it's hard enough to find them, let alone follow what I'm saying to figure it out. But you go through this whole process, and even down to then you have to change the state of like Analondo and all this kind of stuff. And there's lots of things you got to do. And the only way you could do it is by looking it up, essentially. But that's okay. My whole point of describing this is saying that that's cool, because yes, that's a very niche kind of lore-heavy, perhaps even New Game Plus kind of way to play the game. But if you're just someone who's picked up the game and wants to play the game and enjoy yourself and finish the game, you can still do that regardless. You don't have to dive into all this hidden weird crap.
Yeah.
I don't mind there being all that stuff in games, because that's cool, because you can discover things and you can find stuff. But if that's all there is and you can't actually then play the game without looking up how to do that, yeah, then I feel like that's kind of a bad thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, to take it the other extreme though, like a game that again kind of probably holds your hand way too much is something I think of like Skyrim, which I think is still a great game, but you never don't know what to do in Skyrim. Like there's always a marker on your compass saying go here, no matter what you're doing. And there's stuff to discover and everything, but if you literally just explore, you will find everything, and there's nothing really that hidden to you. There are a few things you could probably miss if you're not being thorough, but ultimately, yeah, like when I first played Skyrim, it wasn't long after it came out, and I wasn't very familiar with Bethesda games at the time. Like I'd played, I think, Fallout 3, but I hadn't played many other Fallouts or anything. And so the whole format, and I hadn't played other Elder Scrolls game. I think I played a bit of Oblivion, but not much. And so this was like my first real spend lots of time in an Elder Scrolls game. And I still managed to 100% it just by doing everything. Exploring everywhere, talking to everybody, just doing everything, which is good, I think. But that's kind of like Skyrim really does hold your hand and help you, do everything that you can possibly do.
A fun game that is kind of like, it goes to both extremes at some point. It's Lost Ark, which is an MMO that my boyfriend is currently playing. And the thing is that as many MMO games, you always have a mark on your map where you have to go. So it is very difficult to miss anything in the game. So in that regard, you can advance really quick. The problem is when you want to do raids, because
Yep.
each big enemy or like each raid has like different doors, or that's what they are called, which are essentially rooms with either a boss or group of enemies and a gimmick.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen my boyfriend literally studying on how to beat a boss. Like literally, like he watches a video on it. There's like a wiki on that the community manages, where they even tell you like either with screenshots and or schematics where you have to be standing at a certain point in time, and the rates are at minimum of 4 people and others are of 8 people. So first of all, good luck finding someone who is like your level to the rate. Like more experienced players would, and not everyone, because my boyfriend has found some more very experienced players that kind of like guide him through the thing.
Yeah.
But the thing is that most experienced players want to do the raid quickly because they have
Yeah.
general characters, so they only join raids when there's a rerun of sorts, or like they know people know what the fuck they're doing. If
Yep.
you're playing with people who don't know what they're doing, good luck. Maybe you want to send them that wiki I talked about earlier, because unless everyone is on the same page on what the fuck to do on some of these bosses, you're going to spend several hours, which my boyfriend has already done, and try to figure out the boss, or not even just to figure out, just to get the timing right. Because my boyfriend knew, because of all his studying, more or less what the boss's patterns were, but he wasn't the only one executing them.
Yep.
So yeah, fun stuff.
Well, and I think MMOs are an interesting one as well, because I remember in the 90s I played Ultima Online, which was like one of the very first MMOs, and that didn't have anything like modern MMOs do. Like there was no quest markers, you'd got a map in the box, like I've got it on my wall over there, but that's pretty much it. It didn't tell you how to do anything. But the community were really great. Like I remember playing that game and I was wandering around in like the starting village for like a while, and then some high level dude kind of wandered in and was like, "Hey, is anyone new here?" And I'm like, "Yeah, me." And he's like, "All right, I'll show you what to do." And
That's
even
very
down
cool.
to dumb stuff like, yeah, to when you log out and everything, to sleep, you had to kind of get yourself a tent and everything and go off into the wilderness and build yourself a camp and go to sleep. Or if you had more money, which you don't at the start, you know, you could rent a room or all this kind of stuff. So I found in that game the community was really good, just because they helped each other out, because it was relatively small as well, and it was kind of, you know, it was in the day where only mega nerds were playing this MMO kind of thing. Like,
Yeah,
it wasn't super accessible either. So, you know, most of the people playing it were pretty committed, and but it was nice because they were helpful as well. At least they were to me. So there was another part where I remember wandering around because I thought, I'm going to go explore the map. And I didn't, this is, you know, before I had the concept of the fact that there'd be different areas that are like level based or any of that kind of thing. So I'm just kind of wandering through this forest, like looking around going, oh, what's happening here? And this dude runs by, who, your typical kind of classic MMO kind of experience. This other guy runs by who's like decked out and looks really cool and has got all this cool shit and everything and like moving really quickly and looks amazing. And he runs past me, and then following him is like this big enemy who's like this massive kind of robot looking Gundam thing. And I just kind of hide in a bush. And then I watch him like fight it and everything and take it out. And then he kind of wanders over me and he says, "You probably shouldn't be here." Because like this is a higher level area. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave now. Because I'm just like in rags and I've got no possessions or anything. I'm very obviously a noob. And but you know, that was kind of like learn as you go kind of style. And it was before wikis were a thing as well. So like there might have been like bulletin boards or chat rooms or something where you could talk about it. But without people helping you in game, you'd probably be lost figuring out a lot of stuff, or I would have been anyway. But that's thankfully there was enough cool other people in the community who had managed to help you out anyway. So I felt like I still had a good time, even though I didn't, I never went like end game with that game because you still had to pay a monthly subscription and all that kind of thing. So, I didn't last super long because I didn't want to keep paying it.
On the other hand, you also have Final Fantasy XIV that not only has a very, very comprehensible tutorial and they explain you where to go and what to do. The community is like the best. Like in the in-game, they try to incentivize more experienced players to take care of newbies or like teach them the ropes, especially like on raids and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So in that regard, even if the game doesn't like 100% explain everything like word for word, or like even if they have like more difficult areas, they do give veteran players an incentive to go and help out newbies themselves. So it's not just like, hey, it is both like a hey, I want to keep this community alive so it can keep playing, but also it's like, oh, I also get like this cool stuff or like these cool rewards for helping people and being nice. So I'm gonna help people and be nice.
Well, it's interesting because I remember when I played World of Warcraft, I played through Vanilla and Burning Crusade, but stopped during Burning Crusade. And I remember there was a lot of gold farming and stuff around at the time, where you could pay, you could buy gold from gold farmers and stuff, and a lot of people did that. But that helped me out because I would get my at the time the level cap before Burning Crusade was just 60, so I'd get my level 60 tank essentially, and I'd go and run people through dungeons just with me because I could solo it because when some of the lower level dungeons you could just run through on your own and just spank everybody and you'd be fine. and because they were like, if you were of the level you needed four party members and you needed it to be like, you needed a healer, a tank, a damage dealer, all that kind of stuff. Sometimes it was really hard for people to find groups and to do it. So I'd be like, hey, you can hire me for like 50 gold or whatever and I'll take you through a dungeon. So these people who buy all this farmed gold would be like, yeah, sure, no worries, even though it was stupidly expensive at the time. And I'd be like, all right, 20 minutes work and I earned a shitload of money and I'd help them get through the dungeon.
Beautiful.
And I ended up doing that quite a bit to like earn a bunch of gold. And it turned out to be a pretty good money earner. But yeah, probably not necessarily what was intended. So
yeah, that's kind of like raid slash black market kind of shit.
Yeah.
You were literally a mercenary.
I was the dealer, yeah. Well, it's funny because in Ultima Online, there was, I remember it made the news because it ended up to earn money, people were prostituting themselves, like in the game. So not literally, but it would essentially be having cyber sex for money.
Why?
It was a way to earn some money and you didn't have to do anything except, basically talk to someone. But it became like a bit of an industry in the game because enough people bought it apparently, but then people made lots of money off it. So it's just, one of those ridiculous things that happens in MMOs. Yeah. But I think, ultimately I'm all for games being challenging and like obscuring the goal or making it hard or making it that you have to explore or figure stuff out for yourself. But there's a point where I feel like you still want to at least feel like you're progressing a little bit to stay engaged in it,
Yeah, definitely. And it's okay that some sections of the game may be kind of like a wall, but as long as you have like a clear feedback of what you're doing is right or wrong, or like of what you should be doing, I don't mind it. And if you want to make like very difficult content to access be option if it is optional, I don't mind it either.
Yeah, totally. Like the Dark Souls thing, like you don't have to do all that obscure lore stuff.
Yeah.
But it's there if you really want to.
True. So yeah, that's my verdict. Like, I don't like games that require you to have a wiki open at all times. I do recommend people when they fire up like older games that used to have like a manual with important shit. I recommend you to download that manual and read through it before starting the game. Mainly
Yeah.
because you get like the old intended experience and all that jazz, but also you get like enough information for it not to be too spoilery.
Well, yeah, and hints and stuff as well. Like, I
Yeah,
remember manuals would say stuff like, "Are you stuck? Try doing this," and you'd be like, "Okay."
yeah. So yeah, the in that regard, like I like manuals more than I like the wikis because the manuals give you hints, the wiki gives you the answer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, as long as the wiki isn't required to beat the game, then I'm okay with the game or with
Mm.
the wiki from time to time.
Yeah.
And that
Totally.
is my verdict.
I agree. Basically, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, I think it's a very kind of. It's not a common thing, thankfully. But just one last thought on that as well, though, is I feel like early access games kind of contributed to this a bit as well, because as with a lot of early access games, like if you played it through early access, you probably learned a lot about the game as it's being built and as they add
Yeah.
new features, and you go, oh yeah, that's a new feature, I now know how that works, and you've probably played it a lot more than anyone else. But then there's a few games where I've done that with, and I want to say like Prison Architect is a game where I played it since it was an alpha. Like basically as soon as it was being made, I was onto it, and it obviously throughout development built up a lot, and there were a lot of features and things that went into it, and it got very, very complex by the time it was actually released. But I actually, as much as it's a really good game, when it was released, I was like, oh, as a new player, this would be really freaking confusing. Because there wasn't much tutorialization or anything, and it's actually something they added post-release were essentially like tutorial quests and requirements that you can follow to then learn how to play the game better. Because it was something that came up where it was like, hey, this is all good and everything for us players who've been playing forever, but for new players, they got no idea what's going on and they don't know how to play this game, so
Yeah.
you might want to teach them a little. So yeah, I think fair enough, and also fair enough if you're the kind of gamer who loves getting stuck into wikis and researching things. That's cool. I like to just go in blind and hope for the best. So, but hey, let's get to a quiz to finish this off. Talk about things that we don't know what's happening and we probably want to look up. Paula, quiz me.
Okay, put your thinking cap on right now. I'm gonna tell you this game has a history of 8 hours.
Okay.
And the comment that I'm looking for right now. Okay, this one is 6 hours, so a little bit less than the average. It says a straight playthrough, not trying to change anything.
Not trying to change anything. Okay, that makes me think there's maybe there's like branching paths and you can manipulate outcomes of things, or you can just kind of go straight down the vanilla. 6 hours, 8 hour average, straight playthrough, not trying to change anything. Yeah. Straight playthrough. Maybe I'm trying to think, is there like a game where you can redo parts to change stuff, or not trying to change? That's an odd sentence, really.
Yeah, that's kind of a very interesting sentence.
Like, I feel like it should give me more than I'm, being dumb and not getting. But like what? Okay, so the opposite would be I'm playing and I'm changing as much as I can. So what would that be like? I mean, I don't think it would be. Well, I haven't finished a Psychonauts game, but I was trying to think of like a Psychonauts-y type game.
Yep.
Where you manipulate people, but even then you don't. That's part of the game. Like, I don't know how you'd avoid that. That's the other thing. Like, how do you avoid changing? Like, there's a way that you can play it without doing the changing bit. When usually that's like part of the game. Change. Yeah, I'm totally lost on that. I'm gonna need another clue.
The second one says, this is a main plus. Or main plus sites now it is called. main plus size is 9 hours and a half. This
Okay, it's not that much.
version took 8 hours. It says only 3 survivors first run.
Sorry, what was the last bit?
First run.
First, 3 survivors.
3 survivors.
Oh. First run. Okay, so this is kind of like you do it. Oh, so is it like something's coming to me? Something's coming to me. No, it's not.
It is gone.
Not like Discourse.
No.
Because that's a game where you have survivors and not all of them necessarily survive. But then I don't know how the change would come into it. But then I'm thinking of something like not Virtuaverse, but almost like Virtuaverse kind of style.
I don't know. I don't know that game. You're working at the wrong tree here.
No, that's the sci-fi point and click that I finished recently, and I know it's not that, but there are things in that where you can like manipulate reality to get different outcomes and stuff. So so you can play it with or without changing things. You can have multiple runs, I guess, and there are different amounts of survivors who survive per run. Didn't change anything though. Gosh. That's really throwing me. I keep thinking, well, what is something where you change stuff enough? Although survivors. So maybe like if you play a straight playthrough, you wouldn't save everybody, quote unquote, but you can manipulate and change things that will hopefully then save more people. But from what and how? And why? It's a game where you save people, that's the other thing. Like survivors. I mean, is it like a Walking Dead?
No.
No, you wouldn't be counting the survivors in that, would you? No.
I don't know. Haven't played that.
It's a Telltale game, so like, you know, depending on the choices you make, you might kill people or whatever. Oh no, but you're not changing things. So I also thought Until Dawn.
Yeah.
It is Until Dawn.
It is Until Dawn.
So how are you changing things?
It seems like some people replay some of the earlier chapters.
Weird. Oh, okay. So. Oh, okay. Okay, so they're saying they just played it from start to finish without going back and making different decisions or something. Oh, okay. Yeah, that just threw me. 3 survivors. That's not very good.
That doesn't sound very good. So, like most people said, I lost 3 people, and this one is like, I entered the game with 3 people.
Wow, yeah, that would be a very different game. I think I changed one choice, but I think I managed to make it with all of them alive. Maybe one person died.
Maybe.
Can't remember. Good game though. It was fun. Not amazing, but fun. All right. Well, yeah. Until Dawn. How about that? 2 more points. That brings our gap to 3, 15 to 2.
Yeah.
And we're back to Paula next week, so she's going to make it a bit bigger. But
let's see.
Still hanging in there. I feel like I'm just nipping at your heels.
You're slowly edging closer to my score, and I don't like that.
But yeah, I think that'll do us for this episode. What do you reckon?
What do I reckon?
Probably time for us both to go have a little snooze.
Yeah.
But as always, thanks everyone for listening. And if you have any comments or queries or anything to add, feel free to hit us up on any kind of avenue you feel you'd like to. Always happy to hear from people and interested to know your perspective on things. So by all means, hit me up, and both of us, and whatever. You know what I mean. Thanks for listening.
We know
Catch
words.
you next time.
Bye-bye.
I think that, you know, a good game will let the dumbasses have fun as well.